What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Blakeney, aka Brandon Lee TV. Kick back, relax, and come take a ride with me. The saga of Max Kellerman leaving ESPN 2 years ago was reunited recently as Stephen A. Smith, the main host now, continues to conduct this tour of podcasts, and he recently spoke about the incident, again reigniting the flames a bit on the Joe Budden podcast. But before we get into all that, make sure y'all hit that subscribe button for all the latest and join our memberships. We got that exclusive content coming daily, weekly, whenever you need it. Now, let's get into it.
You are now locked into the Live with Brandon Blakeney podcast. Here is your host, Brandon Blakeney.
So Stephen A. has pretty much stood on his original statement saying that Max Kellerman's removal wasn't personal and that he felt the show was getting stale and needed a change, and that basically Max wasn't cutting it and he didn't feel like he could win with him. And that's kind of an insert of this quote right here from the Joe Budden podcast where he gets into it a little bit.
I didn't like working with him, man. It's just that damn simple. I didn't like it. I thought the show was stale. I thought that we had flatlined when it came to the public at large, and I'm trying to win. But you weren't an athlete, and you weren't a journalist. And the absence of the two components left people wondering, why should we listen to you? Okay, well, you might have had that figured out on Sports Nation, or you might have had that figured out on another show. But on this show, if you looked at the content emanating in the social stratosphere, meaning YouTube and other components that you use to measure one's cachet, Q ratings, focus groups, all of these different things, it was like I was damn near doing the show by myself because we were oceans apart in terms of cachet. Well, how are you oceans apart from me if you sitting right across from me? I've been very honest and very consistent about it. There's nothing personal. We weren't enemies or anything. To be real, we ain't spoke since, other than high and by, or if I had to go on the show when they were doing the morning show, I would get interviewed. But there's been no conversations since, and that's fine with me. That's no problem, because it wasn't like we were boys or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it was all business to me, and it was about, look, man, I'm trying to win, and I don't believe I can win with you.
Woo! It's crazy to me, man, how you go from doing a show with somebody, intimately spending that time, 6 years as co-host, and then nothing, just a clean break. And I get it, you're not going to be friends with all your coworkers, but there's usually some sort of mutual respect there. But it's obviously there's no love lost between Kellerman and Smith right now. Kellerman hasn't really spoke out about it. I did some digging and didn't really find much on his end, but I will say a lot of people felt like this was the moment that Kellerman was done on Stephen A's show.
I'm in the streets. Max almost seems blacker than you, Stephen A. with what he's coming, with his commentary.
With all due respect, my brother.
I'm just saying, dog.
Wait a minute. Wait to finish.
I'm just saying.
I'm gonna check you right now. You don't cross the line.
I'm just saying.
Time. Wait a minute. You don't cross the line.
Now, I'm not saying he's right or wrong in T.O.'s case, but I will say that I've seen many people feel that way and, echo those sentiments that he's saying because of the way Stephen A. Smith, one, was attacking Colin Kaepernick, and two, two black men going at it, and two, how he's shown some extra intensity when talking about black athletes in certain situations. Now, I'm not calling him Malika Andrews by any means, but I get where it's coming from, and obviously this hit a nerve. T.O. struck a nerve with Stephen A. Smith, and it led him to go on a bit of a Twitter rant where he echoed his feelings, his harsh reality, to over 5 million followers on Twitter, and this is what we came across. So T.O. obviously echoes facts over the original video tweet. Stephen A. Smith caught wind, and he had this to say. Stephen A. Smith, quote, "Now, as far as this dude, that's an entirely different story. You know how I feel about your sorry ass Terrell Owens, and you know why. You should thank your heavenly Father I haven't zeroed in on you with the trifling shit you tried to pull. Tell folks to ask ESPN what your desperate ass tried to pull. Keep on talking. Eventually you'll expose yourself. Hashtag real facts. Ooh, spicy. And then he follows it up with, or maybe I'll just dedicate the entire Stephen A. Smith show / podcast on YouTube this Monday to all the things you tried to do behind the scenes. To brothers. Over the years, while claiming someone is more of a brother than others, let me think about that over the next 24 hours. Hashtag sick of this. Hashtag enough. He's fed up. He unloaded on T.O. And this definitely feels personal at this point. We've seen these guys go back at it. Stephen A. Smith has shared his opinions in the past on T.O., but it seems like there's a lot behind the scenes we don't know. So now I'm wondering, what is Stephen A. Smith alluding to? T.O. has been one of the biggest personalities in sports. Some good, some bad, on and off the field. You can hate him or love him, but you got to admit that he is a polarizing figure and has been. And now it seems like he is pissed off the biggest name in the sports reporting game, Stephen A. Smith, who has never been one to shy away from holding his tongue. And it seems like if this does go through and he decides to do this podcast on Monday, we could find out a little bit more about what he's talking about dealing with T.O. But T.O. has definitely stirred the pot, and Stephen A. is not having it. And I get it. Like, there's been some stuff in the past said that after he took over from Skip, they obviously had the #1 show running for a while at ESPN as far as sports talk during the day. Stephen A. and Skip was like Shaq and Kobe. Skip leaves, Stephen A. becomes top dog, and he ain't trying to share that shine with nobody. Was Max coming after his job? I don't know. I've seen some stuff said about that, but, you know, that's all hearsay, so you can't really bank on that completely, I'll say. But I will say, Stephen A. got him clean up out of there. I feel like when Shannon, Unc Shannon, when Unc was at Fox with Skip, they were gaining ground on ESPN a little bit, and Stephen A. did not like it. And now he has Shannon on First Take now, and they've completely revamped this show. Was he mad that Kellerman was getting the black views, the black perspective? I don't know. Was Kellerman actually getting more of the black perspective? Was he more relatable to the black community? I don't know. That's not for me to say, but it seems like that's what everything is kind of leading back to, especially in that previous clip we showed where T.O. alludes to it. That's something that has been said about Stephen A. in the past, and it seems like that point right there is really, really striking a nerve.
Example, black folks lament all the time. We totally support protests. We are protesters. We got a lot to protest about. But when you riot, particularly in your own community, in the past I'm talking about, why is that something that we've lamented? Because when the fire stops burning and the damage has been done, and you've done it in your own community, where do you go from there? The Detroit riots, for example, in 1967, they still have never fully recovered from that, how they ravaged their own community at that particular moment in time. I only bring that up to say this. In this regard, and I only bring that up to say this. In this regard, when you're looking at the NBA, you're not talking about the players. You're talking about the collateral effect that it has on people the sport employs, on people in local economies who feed off of that. The fact is, just something like that, canceling the NBA season, it's not just going to affect the players. It's going to affect thousands upon thousands of people, millions, if not billions of dollars for the economies. And that's going to have a ripple effect.